Hey, it's Jose Galison. You're watching No Way Jose. You can find me on the No Way Jose YouTube channel, also on basically every major podcatcher and Odyssey as well. Today, my guest is Caleb Brown. We're continuing our series of the live reading of An Agorist Primer by Samuel Edward Konkin III. Just so you guys know, I always remind you guys how this works. Today's a live stream. If you're watching on the 11th, and it's available publicly, I will, as soon as we're done, I will put it on private, unlisted, whatever. And then in a week or so, I'll drop it as a numbered episode, and it'll be public then. And in the meantime, it's available for my patrons, and for the low amount of $2 a month. At the lowest level, I have different levels. The highest being the $20, which is a sponsor level. And at that, I have the perk being I read them off as my sponsors every time. So I have CD McRae of the Whiskey and Tea podcast. I went on her show a while ago. She's great. I have at SpaceCat2K on Twitter. Go follow him. He's good shit. I also, he just re-upped. We were joshing him a little bit last time, me and Caleb, because he dropped down, and then now he's back up again. I guess he realized if he's gonna drop super chats anyways, he might as well just be a sponsor. So I got back Jacob Wintergrad. He's a $20 again. He is of the Daniel 3 Biblical Anarchy podcast. Great guy. Great guest. I've had him on my show. I've been on his show. He'll never go on Tower Gang. And like I said, we're doing the Agorist Primer today. I do want to give you some rundown of what's going on with Tower Gang. Tomorrow, January 12th, if you're watching this later when it's as a numbered episode, it'll have already come out, but I'm sure it'll be a banger either way. We're having the guys from the Biting the Bullet podcast on, so that should be fun. And I also do want to let you guys know, maybe you've heard rumors if you're in the Twitter sphere or Liberty circles, but Tower Gang did get Bert Kreischer to confirm that he is down to come on. We have not scheduled a date yet. We're still we just emailed them I think last night or this morning. So we're just waiting to figure out a date. I'll definitely let you know when that happens. That should be great. He should fit in just right with us. You miss every shot you don't take, and that's how Tower Gang's kind of worked out. Everyone bitches about grifting and shit. It's like we're just asking, and it pays off sometimes, and it paid off here. And that should be lots of fun. As always, go check out TopLobsta. He's our secret weapon over at Tower Gang. He's what landed it. He made a great piece of art for Bert. That's what caught his eye. He's done lots of great art for Tower Gang and my show and many other shows. We're kind of partnered with him right now. Use Jose at checkout to get 10% off at toplobster.com. With that, let's go ahead and bring in Caleb and get to it. What's up, dude?
Not much, man. Hey, that Christ episode is gonna be the shit.
Yeah,
I cannot wait to watch it.
Yeah, right. I know. I can't believe we landed. But then again, we landed Shoe on Head, and that was way earlier.
That's cool, but Bud Christ, man. That's it's like 1 degree from Joe Rogan.
Yeah, right. I mean, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, they're fucking homies. So
Bert and Mark Norman are the only comedians nowadays. I watch the entire special when they drop. They're just incredible.
Mark Norman's the guy who's got a little bit of gray in the haircut, right?
Yeah,
but still has a boyish looking face kind of deal.
Oh, yeah. Dude, he is great.
I just watched one with my wife the other day. It was pretty good. It was like a little 30-minute Netflix thing. So
he has a special on YouTube where he has a friend of his who's fat. He goes, "You got skinny privilege. It's easy to be skinny." He's like, "Well, it's not that easy. You couldn't do it." And it's just, I love it. It's 5-minute jokes and just moves on to the next one. But no, Buck Chrysler, when he got the machine coming on. Hey, maybe you'd have an answer for this one. How much does TopLobsta charge if you want to have him draw something? It's one-off.
I don't know. I'm sure it's different for everybody. It works out differently. I mean, all I can say is DM him. Because I'm not gonna put out his business. Yeah. I'm sure he does it differently for everybody. But yeah, definitely. Anyone out there, if you want commissioned work, hit up TopLobsta. I'm sure he's willing to come up with sort of price. I don't think he has a set thing. Probably just I don't know. I mean, we kind of, I guess for me and Tower Gang and stuff, it was just kind of we grifted our way into it. So
grifting your way to the top. That's what you do.
Yep. So I mean, but yeah, I guess let's just go ahead and get into it. Unless you got any more chitter chatter. We have today's chapter 5. We're gonna try and knock out chapter 6 as well. But chapter 5 should be a fun one. This is a libertarianism one, which kind of how he's defining it is, I think he's more meaning big L libertarianism. It's been a while since I've read this chapter, and I didn't read it through before we did it. It's kind of fun just going through it again a little bit fresh and seeing what happens. But this one might be a fun one. This might be one that pisses off some of the LP types. We'll see. Should be fun.
Is there a dig up in the chat yet?
I don't know. I haven't seen anyone in the chat yet. I don't know. I probably should have retweeted the Twitter thing, but I always forget to. But
I posted it.
Okay. But yeah, no, I haven't seen him yet. Maybe he'll pop in later. It'll be fun to piss him off. But I don't know if anyone else in here wants to whine. You're welcome to come in. I may or may not bring it up. If you super chat it, I definitely will bring it up, depending on who it is. Or if you're a patron of the $5 level or above, I will definitely do it. And if you're the $5 level, I have a little code I give you guys to drop in the chat to know, so I know you're a patron. But yeah, you ready to do this shit?
Let's do it, man.
Yeah. All right. Chapter 5, Libertarianism. The basic premise of Agorist thinking is that counter-economics has failed to free society because counter-economics lacks a moral structure that only a full-blown philosophical system can provide. In this chapter, we deal with the other half of this problem, an ideology unconnected to reality. Where counter-economics is application with theory, libertarianism is theory without application. All right, I don't know if you got anything about that, because that is pretty good little right out the gate.
I can't add anything besides that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, he's 100% correct. There's nothing to add.
Yeah, which I think in the last episode I kind of touched on this point a little bit with the idea of, say, with somebody like a drug dealer who's, they're not really hurting anybody. They're just selling drugs, just this example, and they're just doing it to make more money. Like, that is essentially, in a certain way, that is the application without the theory, because the person's not really thinking it. And I'm definitely of the opinion that praxis is more important than theory, but they work together. Like, I think, you need to have both. And if you're in a spot where your theory doesn't work in application, you have a shit theory and you need to work on it. So,
yeah, I mean, I agree. My show is called Face Liberty in Practice, not Face Liberty in Theory. Mainly because I can't say theory that well.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know. I guess there is something to be said that if you have praxis and there's not guided at all by theory, you can be doing negative actions that don't benefit you or others at all. But I think to some extent, just actually doing something is a good move in the right direction, even if I guess you're kind of doing something wrong. All right. Now, first section, many gods, one morality. Libertarianism differs from all other philosophies by its pluralism. It does not to ask how you came to the fundamental moral premise, religious revelation, atheistic observation, natural law theory, or many others. Christians, Taoists, objectivists, and pagans travel different routes to arrive at one moral code in common. Initiation of coercion or the threat of violence is immoral. This is a libertarian principle. I like that because it does touch on how people come through it from many ways, and that's kind of in libertarianism at its its finest. And I guess in a sense you could say agorism is pushing to forge your own thick libertarianism, if you will. So, which I'm a fan of that. Two things follow from the phrasing. One, there are no exceptions. Hence, libertarianism affects all human action by this formulation. Two, it is phrased negatively so that anything else is permissible human behavior, though each adherent may find other acts immoral or objectionable. Christianity yields a yes-no answer to every aspect of human activity. So too, Marxism, Islam, objectivism, and many, many other understandings of the world's nature. In these systems, anything not prohibited is mandatory. You must or must not. Libertarianism answers only that you may or may not, leaving choice to you. Any religion or ideology that swears not to coerce others to act in accordance with its precepts is compatible with libertarianism. All religions and ideologies that use force for anything save self-defense in the narrow immediate sense, excluding preventative aggression and other such rationalizations, are enemies of libertarianism. I don't know if anything piqued your interest there.
No, I mean, I think he's 100% right. Any religion is workable as libertarianism, or any libertarianism is workable as any religion. As someone who's Catholic, I run into a lot of people who say, "Oh, you can't be a libertarian and a Catholic." People who say it, they look at libertarianism and overwalk an entire moral framework and not just simple, is it force or not? Like it's really is libertarian all derives from a simple ethic. Is it force or not?
Yeah.
And so,
which, I mean, that is a good point that he brings up in there, that like religion is it gives you things to do as opposed to things just not to do. And I do think that we probably could riff on too there if we want to. I know the big thing as of late, it's not even as of late, it's been a talking point in a lot of circles, is the whole idea of like say libertarianism being Christianity or religion without, without the whatever the driving force. You could probably apply it to other, you could say it's Islam without Muhammad, or it's Christianity without Jesus, and there's something to that.
How about it? I think that really applies. Libertarianism for me is it's Protestantism without religion. Like it's you look at the objectives of, let's say, of evangelical, they're going to coincide with it in the same, not in the word for word go, but in a similar meaning of we want to create a utopia for happier people, pretty much. And I know it's not a utopia, libertarian, but to most people it is a utopia because what you're describing is so outside the norm of reality. Why for Catholicism, I think all political goals are normally different because we're more monarchists often than not, and so we have a different practice outside. We have more laws, we have a natural hierarchy we subscribe to in the church. So we are less likely to be a anti-hierarchy libertarian, which gives us our Syrian praxis.
All right. On the next section, Libertarian Society. Libertarianism's very pluralism prevents one from ascribing any unanimous characteristic to libertarians. They all want liberty, but for different reasons and see different ways of achieving it. Some would take control of the state and force others to be free. Others would not even resort to violence to defend themselves. Giving all those groups their due to enriching libertarian thought and life with greater variety than any other ideology, the rigorous application of consistency to which Agorist in this book adhere does settle some issues. I do think I kind of want to touch on this a little bit. It's how do I put this? Like one thing I got from reading, I brought this up many times. It's not a new talking point, but it applies here. One thing that I remember I did the Emma Goldman episode from my Anarchist Handbook thing, and that whole essay is about how majorities and minorities work within each other. And I think he's kind of driving at here is that libertarianism, as a whole, is kind of this majority concept where it just becomes this mishmash of concepts where you kind of need minorities. In this example, he's pushing for like agorism to kind of drive things one way or the other. And you can kind of also make the populist elitism type thing, which is in some senses is kind of saying that elitism, you're kind of, but yeah, a free society is one in which man is constrained only by unthinking nature. His fellow men leave him alone. One can personally live up to this, and one can admit only those who uphold it, expelling all those who don't. But one cannot prevent anyone from instituting aggression. One can only deal with it after the fact.
Yeah, one of the things I've been talking to people about and thinking about is security, preventing aggression, and kind of like the role that has. And I had Ace on recently talking about prison abolition, and in the process of talking about, we kind of talked about like prisons and the sex offender registry and these kind of things are attempting to punish someone for possible future crimes as well as regular crimes. And it's really the idea. One, you can't really do it because you can't predict future action. Two, the idea you could is scary and wrong. And so it's, I like the fact that he brings that up, but I think a lot of people, you think as a lot of movies where they're like, we're going to get him before he does something. And that's always the bad guy. Some people would kind of get that fact, but no, people have yet to get that fact.
All right. Statists advocate creating a bigger criminal, a great monster institution which will terrify nearly everyone, innocent or guilty, into submission. This organization will extract some form of acceptance from its citizens and yet plunder them at will. Taxation. It will control their behavior and even their thinking. Though some statists seek to place some restraints upon this super criminal organization, some of those who advocate the strongest restraints as they perceive them call themselves limited government libertarianisms, since they seek a small state or mini anarchy, or they are minarchists. Consistent libertarians see no place for criminals, even to fight other criminals. They believe free market, all voluntary methods will take care of the few criminals. Finding them, arresting them, trying them, and restoring lost value to the victim from their aggressors. The means of accomplishing this vary from communal power to highly technological competitive business agencies and others in between, such as neighborhood block associations. Such no government libertarians are called anarchists. The peaceful libertarians who refuse even to defend themselves have to be classified with anarchists. It is bitterly ironic that heavy state propaganda has convinced many people that anarchists throw bombs, since most anti-war movements, draft resistance, disarmament, and tax resistant groups were organized by anarchists of one sort or another. Perhaps 0.01% of those calling themselves anarchists throughout history have used a bomb. 100% of all states bomb, shell, and machine gun regularly as a matter of course. A libertarian society is one which approximates a free society save for a small percentage of criminal aggression, which is handled by voluntary mechanisms. A society in which aggression gets out of hand is one with a de facto, if not de jure, state or government, a statist society. Got anything there?
No, he's spitting facts again.
Yeah, I just kind of, this is one of the spots where he's just being more descriptive. Libertarianism and the free market. A few libertarians advocate communal or neighborhood social organization with collectively held property, voluntarily surrendered. Most libertarians have adopted the free market and the economic understanding of it developed in Chapter 1. So whenever a conflict between the economics of government intervention or confiscation, statism for short, and free enterprise emerges in public debate, libertarians rush to the forefront of defense of the individual or non-state group. Libertarianism often confuses statists of the left wing and the right by opposing both. Libertarians see war as total socialism and march with many leftists against it. Yet opposition to welfare statism allies libertarianism with some rightists. But statists of the left and right are easily distinguishable from libertarians in any coalition. Threaten the state's existence and observe their reaction. Conservatives will give up free enterprise rather than see government abolished. Liberals will go to war rather than see government abolished. Libertarians will abolish the state and end both socialism and war. Have you anything there?
I think this was true at the time. I don't know if this is the same for like modern right. I think there's a lot of people on the right who would choose to see abolish federally and keep the local system.
Yeah.
I think the left. That's. I mean, I'm going through the book on what's it called? Suicide of the West by Burnham, which is all about liberalism, and his claim to think about liberals is completely right. I mean, they are, spot on.
Yeah. Well, we're cruising through this one, but this is definitely one of those more descriptive ones, like the first couple chapters. Libertarianism and the counter economy. Libertarian dissidents from Polish professors to American students make up an intellectual field of counter economics. A Yugoslavian theorist raised in the Marxist tradition called for removing politics from socialism and embracing a market economy. All right. It would appear that there is a natural affinity between the philosophers of freedom and the practitioners of counter economics. Indeed, few libertarians would deny the moral correctness of the latter. An early slogan some radical libertarians put on a button was defend the black market. Libertarianism in the United States traces its history from the abolitionist movement to free the slaves, an act of human counter economics. And yet, while many abolitionists created and maintained an underground railway to assist slaves who freed themselves counter-economically, others called for upholding the law, working within the system, and engaging in politics to take over the government and pass laws to free slaves. The same division between activists and reformers afflicts modern libertarians and many other ideological movements, to be sure. I guess it sounds like here he's kind of setting up the dichotomy of between honestly, I guess a little on the nose, but agorists and then say LP people or something.
Break the law types and reform was in the system.
Yeah. George Orwell, who came to a type of libertarianism from activism in the social movement in the 1930s, castigated some of his fellow socialists for refusing to dirty their hands and actually fighting for their beliefs in the battlefields of Spain. This perceptive author of 1984 and Animal Farm noted these hypocritical dilettantes' proclivity for hanging around English drawing rooms and waxing eloquent for the socialist cause while contributing precious little else. He called them parlor pinks. Libertarianism is afflicted with more than its share of library libs today. Some, though, are horribly paralyzed by the question, how do we achieve a free society? Which obviously is... Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
That was a great part right there. From the names from the library libs, that is a great name for several people I know on Twitter. What's the party? Paula Pinks. I keep forgetting George Orwell. As much as I don't like 1984, actually did shit. He went fault for saying he believed in. And I love Animal Farm, so he gets a pass on a lot of stuff. But it's library lib and how we get to free society. I mean, it just sounds like the post-libertarian practice people read that line. We're like, how do we get to that?
Yeah.
But
that's a main crux of agorism in the idea of kind of go fucking do something. Like it's because there are so many of us who are, we were talking about theory earlier, are just it's highly engaged in theory. And theory is great, but if you don't have practice, what use is it? And I mean, obviously, people would say like something like the LP, which I know we'll get to at some point in here because he very much has his critiques of the LP. But I mean, sure, kind of, no, not really. I mean. You definitely would agree with me, even though you're more for the paleo.
Well, that's actually why I'm excited to get to it. And we're going to come at it from two different angles. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, because it's kind of the point of like, what are you doing? I get it as a messaging, but it's like, what are you doing? And even then,
your messaging how to not you messaging one thing. I don't know how to run a political party.
Yeah,
like, you see what happened with the whole Mises Caucus thing recently? They don't know what they're doing. No one knows what they're doing in the Mises Caucus. It's sad.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. We'll see how that goes because they just had the whole Massachusetts thing, which, I mean, at the same time, though, like we know that it will be that they'll end like to the Massachusetts LP thing. They'll inevitably get back. But in what are they going through? Like, for example, right now they're trying to censure Josh Smith for some shit. I don't even know what exactly, but a censure, from my understanding,
he's too good for the Libertarians.
Yeah, but my understanding of what a censure is, it's literally just a formalized that was bad, and that's it. Like, so you're going to waste all this time in this bureaucratic nonsense for this, and I get it. The Mises Caucus guys would be like, well, we don't want to do that. And I'm like, okay, but here's the reality. It's what's happening. Like, all this time is being wasted. Say with these different, fucking, it's been multiple times now. There's been some weird coup from the fucking the bitch fuck cucks or whatever.
It keeps coming for the people they give concessions to.
Yeah,
like they keep giving concessions, letting people into circles, and they keep getting fucked over by it. You can't take the problem with the Libertarian Party, the Big Tent. You can't take over a Big Tent party and still be a Big Tent. You have to kick people out, and they're not doing that. They want to still be a Big Tent and have the numbers, and it's like, no, it sucks because of the people inside. Get rid of them.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess the more point I was getting at is even if you were. Even that critique aside, it's just the idea that you're being bogged down in so much nonsense, and then even then, what is the end result? Like, it's like even if there is some sort of benefit that is extracted from this in the long run, and I'm sure Konkin will get to this and be like, there'd be so much more that could be benefited by going other routes. Like even something like what Pop Libs is trying to do, like with his stuff, like the way he's laid it out, it takes far less people, it's way more efficient, and like, I mean, obviously,
Jose, it raises taxes by 5% for some people.
Yeah.
Whoa, now.
Which obviously, I mean, I don't necessarily agree with that entirely. His method, but at least there's something going on there. Like, I don't know. But anyways, this combination of strategic paralysis, moral lassitude, honest confusion due to the rich variety of libertarian pluralism, and not a little selling out has weakened libertarianism to the point where what is presently called the libertarian moment may no longer be trusted to defend the counter economy and achieve a libertarian society. The next chapter shows why. All right, now we're in the next chapter, which applied libertarianism. So I don't know if you have anything on that last paragraph.
Have you read Rothbard's like why he left the LP?
I haven't read it, but didn't Pops and just do it?
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Yeah, the LP's been a mess for forever.
Yes, I mean, it's just, I mean, when will we learn this lesson?
16 Mises caucuses from now.
Yes. All right. And that's not to say that I don't, I actually very much identify with these people. I think they have the right theory and stuff. It's just,
he's not my people. I friends with all of them.
Yeah. I think the
wrong.
The praxis is a little fucked. And you could be better served going in pretty much anywhere else. All right. Chapter 6, Applied Libertarianism. A brief history of liberty. The history of the libertarian movement can be divided into 4 historical periods. The first covered most of our history, when many men and women derived the ideas of freedom and defended freedom as they understood it with little comprehension of the mechanics of human action. Some of these, such as Quakers of Pennsylvania, settled colonies away from predatory statism and developed peace and trade with the natives.
I gotta point out, anybody listening, the Quakers are like the best. If I wasn't Catholic, I'd be a Quaker because of the history. It's a great movie. Well, it was a great movie. Friendly Persuasions. It's about a family of Quakers in the Civil War, and the South is coming to raid them. And they have to decide if they're gonna fight or not. And the mom won't let the kids fight, and then one guy shows up. They show up, and the dad runs off to fight. And it's a really great story about pacifism and religion. I just wish it was historically accurate. Was the North doing the pillaging to the South, but still a good movie.
All right, the American Revolution erupted the year that Adam Smith published the first basic work on economics. Still, the confused American revolutionaries allowed the Federalist status to restore a strong central government by a bit of trickery called the Constitution, a piece of paper which supposedly guaranteed to restrain the new state. Which, it was a point. I was kind of like thinking on this recently when I did the Spooner episode. Because I think Camille Foster, I on Twitter, like kind of pushed back. I don't know if you watched the episode and saw we were a little rough on it. I'm not a fan of the Constitution per se. I'm sure I could definitely think of positives of it, but I'm 100% on board with the revolution. But at the same time, I don't know. I guess I'm not 100%, but there's definitely critiques. But the idea of a group of people shunning off their chains of a government, and then it's the second part of then now we're going to reinstitute a new one is the issue, and then we're going to somehow restrain it. And that in itself is kind of the folly of violent revolutions, as they naturally get co-opted, and then just which is kind of the main point of agorism. He's pushing for an agoristic revolution, which is different.
That's what I was thinking about. I'm reading about the French Revolution, all these revolutions, and it's like if the agorist way was done, it'd be very different because the intention is, the practice of it is different, which is very interesting to kind of think about how that would play out.
Yeah, and even then, I will say, if this is more from the other book, New Libertarian Manifesto, it's not necessarily even a peaceful revolution either. The way he lays it out is, the idea is you get to a certain point, you put in the infrastructure by building up the gray and black markets. Eventually, get to a point where the agora has grown to the point where we start having more. And you could even point out now examples of it. But you get to a point where you have more private defense institutions, and you get to a point where the agora is large enough to go, oh. Well, fuck you, and that's where the violent part comes in. And not necessarily violent in like a retributive type way, but more in a like a
you're not gonna fuck with us anymore.
Yeah, we're gonna go take all the people from prison who shouldn't be there, free them, like that kind of shit. But that's like the last phase.
I would love nothing more than to see like a Catholic diocese in a county or somewhere just kind of go, no, what, this government's corrupt, we're not playing part anymore, and just like pull the diocese and everyone into their own thing. Like that would be the dream. That would be like if I could get Catholics to be agorists, which I think is compatible completely, almost completely. You have to pay taxes probably, but outside that, like, don't harm people. I'm not gonna get into it all, but I can make a strong case for Catholic agorism.
Yeah, I mean, not to go on a side tangent, I do remember one thing stuck with me. It's probably the first episode I ever did with Jacob, and we talked a lot about, I think, was it Romans 13, give unto Caesar's what is due Caesar's. And he literally pointed out, he's like, yeah, what is due Caesar? Is Caesar owed anything? Like, and like, he even kind of made the point that, like, I think Jesus may have been like kind of making a point. It might have been a little bit of a pun, a joke.
I have a problem with those kind of translations. If you have to read Jesus and go, I'm going to infer something that's not written, I think that's a dangerous line to start walking. I look at it more as a tactical pacifism, as, hey, pay Caesar unto Caesar, because your goal is not to violent revolution or be free. Your goal is to win souls. So what is the most tactically pacifist way to win souls? And that's how I would do Romans 13. But I'm not a Christian anarchist, and so I kind of read things differently.
Yeah. All right. Where was I at? All right. Most of the revolutionaries, nearly all the signers of the Declaration of Independence, for instance, opposed the Constitution. Many Americans.
I have a framed copy of the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah. Many Americans were taken in by the statist selling job and laid down their arms that were defending them, practically in exchange for the paper guarantee. As soon as the new government was elected, it sent the military to Pennsylvania to crush the tax rebels who opposed the new tax on whiskey distillation, which most people aren't aware of it. That's literally almost immediately the Constitution got fucked. Like,
you can't see it, but I have on the shelf History of Money and Banking by Rothbard.
Yeah.
And it is, if anyone's listening, it reads kind of like line by line, this happened. There's no story to it. It's just a list of facts in a way. But you read that and you can kind of infer the story. The financial system of America was fucked before the Declaration of Independence. Like
Yeah.
it was just a shit show, and there was no fixing it. Like it was terrible. I highly recommend people read that book.
Yeah, no, pretty much anything Rothbard. But
Yeah.
yeah, in England, soon after, a man named William Godwin took the political ideas of the American revolutionaries to their logical conclusion and became the first anarchist. Which, I mean, I'm sure someone could fucking quibble about that, being the
I
first
think
anarchist.
Ace makes the argument that the Taoists or the Taoists in China were 500 BC were the earliest anarchists. But I haven't. I'm reading them now, but I haven't. I'm reading it now. I don't see anything explicitly anarchist, and of course, reading Asian philosophy is fucking weird. It's all poetry almost, but I don't see anything there anarchist.
In the 1830s European intellectual scene, a man named Max Stirner, fuck yeah, he's ego in his own, great book, combined anarchy with defense of the free market, as far as Adam Smith understood it then, and created a philosophy of egoism or total individualism. For a time, he contested with Marx and Engels for the loyalty of the young Hegelians and the German clubs. They wrote a 2-volume defense of their theory against Stirner, the German ideology. In the United States, Josiah Warren continued the anarchist tradition in Massachusetts. One of his abolitionist followers, Lysander Spooner, finally developed the killing argument against the U.S. state in his remarkable natural law treatise, No Treason, the Constitution of No Authority, which I cannot stress enough. If you haven't read that book and you have any sort of like, if you're on the fence about the Constitution, or even if you do love it, read that and try to tell me it's not a bulletproof argument of why, logically speaking, the Constitution has no merit in that, and at least in logic. I'm sorry. I'm sure you could probably make some arguments in another way.
I think Poppy Lib has. I think he's made some arguments around, but I don't know his arguments. Real quick though, I shouldn't be adding to the book my book list, but I want to do Ego in its own on the book club. I need a guest. Would you be interested?
I say get Magnus for that one. He might be able to speak better on it than me.
I haven't blocked on Twitter.
He would be the best one for it, and I don't even know how he'd cover it. It really is one of those books that's so kooky that it's like I don't even know how I would. I don't know. It almost merits a live reading, because I mean I'm trying to do like a condensation of it. I don't know. I thought I think I might in the future. I was thinking about maybe doing a live reading with like Magnus or somebody. I know you have Magnus blocked, but Magnus is legit a good guy.
I don't know I think he blocked me. I blocked him. I can't remember which one it is, but
I don't know. I would suggest. I know a lot of the Hoppian types and stuff don't like him, and I get their reasons why and stuff. A lot of people think he's like a Fed or some shit, but it's like, I don't know, a lot of the Fed stuff online, I'm just like, well, if he gets in your DM saying, hey, let's go do this, just be like, no, I'm good. No, I will not help you blow up a federal building. Like, I don't get all the freaking out about Feds online. It's like,
it's kind of weird.
I know if someone starts getting your DMs or trying to convince you to do political violence, that just don't. Like, I don't know what you're so concerned about Feds for. They're there one way or the other. So
it's not that hard to just think, no, what? No, I won't blow up this government building. It's not hard. Just say no.
Like, I don't know. Unless you have some sort of surefire thing, say with like Sarwark with like the WikiLeaks, where he was kind of indicted to be most likely a Fed. Unless you have something there, it's kind of a silly witch hunt, which it's like you're almost just better off assuming people are Feds and just being like, okay, well, they're Feds here. My
best friend might be a Fed. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't care. Alas, it was nearly a century late before the state was entrenched well enough to fight a civil war to destroy the remaining internal restraints on its power, naturally under the pretext of expanding freedom by abolishing slavery. Spooner saw through that smokescreen and supported both abolition and secession of the southern states. His follower, Benjamin Tucker, discovered Stirner's European individualism and combined the two traditions. The heyday of individualist anarchism during the publication of Tucker's Liberty magazine from 1881 to 1908 could be called the second stage of libertarianism. George Bernard Shaw, for example, broke into the American literary scene through Liberty. The full title of Tucker's journal was Liberty, the Mother, Not the Daughter of Order.
I did not know that's where that came from. I did not know Benjamin Tucker was that associated with that Lysander Spooner. And I gotta say, I love how he points out that the Civil War was kind of like the end of the American experiment.
Mm.
Like people who say American experiment is like failing now, it's like no, it ended 100 years in. Like,
Oh yeah,
100 years in, it was over.
which that's another great thing about no treason. I really can't go on that enough, because while no treason is a breakdown of why the Constitution is basically logically speaking horseshit.
Mm-hmm.
For what it purports to be, a government of consent or whatever.
Yeah.
But God, I totally fucking forgot what I was gonna say. But it's also steeped in the Civil War, because this is following the Civil War, and he's kind of that point you're making there, of that, like, one of his big reasons is like, hey, if there was any argument for it to be had, it just went down the drain.
Yeah.
You completely undermined any concept whatsoever of this being on consent, where a group tried to break off and say, we no longer give you consent. And then you go, no, fuck you. You're keeping your consent. Like, that's not how consent works.
No, if you read Lysander Spooner and you read Thomas De Winter's The Real Lincoln, and you come out still like blue pill on the Civil War, there's no hope for you. It's over.
Yeah.
You're done. You can't move. If those arguments don't convince you, you're either stupid or blue pill as fuck.
Yeah.
No other way.
Tucker still had problems with economics, not understanding subjective value or the validity of rent, interest, and profit. While willing to accept anything arrived at freely, he and his associates spent their energies on side issues and invalid controversies. When World War I broke out, they lost the center stage of history to the socialists for half a century. At the same time that Tucker himself was giving up, brilliant Austrian economist Ludwig von Mises wrote his doctoral thesis, The Theory of Money and Credit, which explained interest, inflation, and business cycles. His analysis led to an easy explanation and prediction of the Great Depression, but it went unheeded. In 1949, Mises published his magnum opus, Human Action. Along the way, he sent the communist economists into a panic by proving that the economic calculation was impossible once socialist statists destroyed the free market pricing system. You got something to say? You sound like you're about to. Oh, you're muted.
No, he kind of. I mean, I get he's not important for the story he's telling, but he glossed over 1922's release of Socialism, which, in my opinion, is his best book. Like, it is.
Yeah.
It's his best book. It also came out. I would joke. 100 years ago, Mises released Socialism by Socialism, and why are we still arguing about this? He saw.
Yeah.
It's a great book.
Yeah, I mean, he's literally going through the whole. Basically the whole history of libertarianism and anarchy and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I mean, he's going to skip over a few things.
Yeah. I get skipping over a few things, but I have to point out people listening, it is the best book.
So far, this is actually a pretty good condensed history of libertarianism, anarchy, roughly-ish.
I'm always impressed with how well of a writer Konkin was. Like, his two books, you read them, and you knock them out a day, and like, I can read them again. They're so... The way he explained economics in the first part of the book, it's incredible.
Yeah,
he is I wish we got more from him, because he was a great writer.
Yes, he was very good at being concise, because it's like he leaves in all the relevant information, but it's still short and concise. So this is something you could give someone. Like, if I know I'm not like everyone gets mad. You're like, oh, go read this, but like this is a short. Both of his books are short, but they're very concise. They're very packed with information. And so you get a lot out of it, and it's not this like daunting thing. It's not like, hey, buddy, you're interested in libertarianism? Go read Human Action.
Yeah. No, like, listen, but we're gonna probably this episode, one more episode, to finish the live reading. After that, go read them yourself. And then on my podcast, I have Saudi Agorist talking about both of them. So you have plenty of easy read and long material for breakdown of it. So there's no excuse really. Unless you just hate agorism, then there's no that's really no excuse.
During the 1920s and 1930s, proto-libertarians such as H.L. Mencken and Albert J. Nock kept the philosophy alive, but in despair. One of Nock's students, Frank Chodoroff, reached one of Mises' students, Murray Rothbard. In 1950, Rothbard connected with the American anarchist tradition, and the modern libertarian stage began. Another of Nock's students, Susan La Follette, inspired many modern libertarian feminists. More women, Rose Wilder Lane and Isabel Patterson, kept libertarianism alive in the 1940s. For 20 years, Rothbard tirelessly sold his consistent libertarian view in intellectual circles and was purged from the right, from objectivists, from the left, and various other groups, always taking a few more with him, never despairing. In 1916, I kind of want to touch on that too, because it is cool how Rothbard did kind of he literally did jump all over the different practices, and this is like different spots, tried, kept going. He was, I don't know, there's not enough praise that can be heaped upon Rothbard, really.
Yeah.
In 1969, during the heat of the student revolt against the Vietnam War and the draft, both the leftist Students for Democratic Society and the rightist Young Americans for Freedom split internally. The anarchists from SDS joined the Free Marketeers from YAF at a convention called by Dr. Rothbard, and thousands of young activists were unleashed onto the campuses to fight for pure freedom. Within a few years, there were 1 million libertarians in North America and small groups from England to Spain to Australia. Libertarians graduated and started businesses or entered the higher levels of academy, bringing reinforcements to Dr. Rothbard and his previously small core. Libertarian reporters, authors, and even newscasters spread through the media, which I know he's going to get into it more probably, but I mean, you look at today, we forget how small things were, but like, look what we have today and the infrastructure we have in place. It's quite something. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of people, kind of joking on the Fed things earlier. Like there are ones that like kind of do glow, and you're like, are you just controlled opposition? But I mean, even that aside, like there's
Palumbo.
Yeah. That's what I was getting at. Based, right? A woman and a gay dude. Super based.
I hate that the guy who got me to libertarianism is a Hannah Cox fan.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, man.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe they could just be. I mean, it's kind of the thing where it's like
Fed
whether they're
stupid. Which one is it?
Yeah, I mean, either way, same effect. Like whether you're controlled opposition or not, the end effect is the same.
Yeah.
But Robert Lefebvre, another libertarian educator, contemporary with Rothbard, graduated hundreds of businessmen from his seminars and thousands from Rampart College. Leonard Read and his crew reached many from all walks of life at the Foundation for Economic Education. New foundations and institutes sprang up. Early in 1971, a group of Californians started a Libertarian Party as a front for distribution of literature and appeal for equal time on local media. In December of 1971, David F. Nolan convened a founding convention of a Libertarian Party in deadly earnest. Rothbard scoffed at the idea of a party as wildly premature. In 1972, an LP presidential candidate got few votes, but thanks to a renegade Republican elector from Virginia, John Hospers, professor of philosophy at the University of Southern California, received one electoral vote. His running mate, Tony Nathan of Oregon, became the first woman to receive one. The elector, Roger McBride, became the LP nominee for president in 1976. The LP emerged from two sources: impatience and inconsistency. I like that.
Good.
In 1972, the student movement collapsed, but the graduates needed years to affect society by working their way through the system and building alternatives outside it. This desire to achieve results now, get rich quick, was expressed in the return of many who had rejected the status system to re-enter it, though most of those entering the LP were not the politically cynical old-timers. The more raw recruits to libertarianism had little direct experience with politics and so accepted arguments that the party would spread the word to people used to receiving it via the biennial electoral process. Oh, wow.
Wow, that's pretty accurate and still relevant.
All right. Well, Daniel, you are back to the $20 level, so you get the free super chats without super chatting. NASA is fake news. The Earth is a spook. Okay.
Yes, this hat is completely ironic. Space is fake, y'all. I'm religious. I'm religious. I have to think that.
All right. Well, half the LP recruiters swore that the LP was an educational tool and would never win an election and take power. Huh. The other half promised the replacement of the Republicans by the new party and the transformation of society from the top down. Oh fuck! I'm not gonna go on another tangent.
Yeah, we've done some tangents already.
Sounds familiar. During 1973, the party threat became serious, and the libertarian movement began to split. The anti-party libertarians call themselves various names, such as New Libertarians, Left, more consistently radical libertarians. Which I do want to touch on that real quick. He says left libertarians, and he puts in parentheses, more consistently radical. This is what I'm talking about, where I've talked about before of how Konkin was defining the left. He was more meaning it left in the term of like anarchy, being more anarchist, more not in the state, more not utilizing the state. That's what he means by left, which I do think that has its consequences, which I've talked on before and probably I think previous episodes of this.
Yep.
Radical libertarians and exotic names such as voluntarists. The common goal of these activists was to deflect the party anti-principle in the minds and hearts of most libertarians and pursue the original goals of liberty in libertarian, that is, anti-political ways. The party arcs, which is, this is a term he uses a lot. What's up, David? I see you in the chat. As those who professed being ruled by a party, yet call themselves anarchists, were then called. By the way, party arcs, I do want to stress that again. That is a common term Konkin uses. Konkin has a good app. There's a few terms he comes up with. There's his own little words. Party arcs. I don't know if he was the originator of it, but it's definitely attributed to him. He's probably the most noted person who uses it. Party arcs would be people, advocating using the party. And their minarchist allies were small in number, but did have an advantage in getting newspaper and television coverage. Radical libertarian campaigns such as the 1976 Vote for Nobody counter campaign received publicity on several hundred radio stations, and 50% of registered American voters failed to cast ballots. More and more pure libertarians gave up on the label as the word was increasingly identified with a group out to take political power as opposed to abolishing it. The new libertarians found that many who would agree to live freely and trade without aggression were repelled by the libertarian name. Finally, in 1983, the movement of the libertarian left, the New Libertarian Alliance, and others moved to drop the libertarian label entirely. Some chose the name voluntarism, which that's where that term comes from. Those wishing to promote the completely consistent ideology described in this book chose the name Agorist. During the 1973 struggle, the challenges for an alternative strategy to politics were answered by the NLA founder who discovered it and coined the term counter-economics. In 1980, the NLA published New Libertarian Manifesto, which explained agorism and beyond to libertarian activists, which New Libertarian Manifesto was his first book. So, we will definitely touch on that at some point.
Wanted to ask. He mentioned earlier the Libertarian Party was just used to promote literature to begin with. That's probably the best they could do.
Which we have that.
Yeah. Which I was about to lead into. Why give money to a fair political party when you give money to either Jose or the Mises Institute, who will actually do a better job of promoting things than the entire Failure Mises Caucus?
Yep, and it doesn't have the negative externalities that come with utilizing a political party. So I think we'd be in a much better place if we somehow, I don't even know how you would do it, if you somehow magically abolished the Libertarian Party and just use it for infrastructure for the Mises Institute. That'd be the way to go.
This is how you have Poppy Libs one for the LP.
Yeah. I think really the only way it works, which is kind of my main point, a lot of people will say shit like, oh, well, we have this Libertarian Party and it has our name in it, and so we need to use it because otherwise our name will be besmirched. For one, he was kind of getting at here in the past couple paragraphs, a lot of people were just like, well, we'll just drop the label. But that aside, even if you don't want to drop the label, it's like the alternative argument is if you say, oh, well, it has the name in it, so we should use it because the name is like, or the alternative is we should try to distance ourselves as much as possible and let it just relegate itself to irrelevancy. So,
I vote that option.
Yes. I guess do they do better? Who do better?
Mises Caucus, Mises Institute. Yes, I would say the Mises Institute does a better job of spreading libertarianism in the Mises Caucus.
Yes.
Yeah, because when
they're not being strong-armed by political incentives.
And not just that, there are Republicans who will read the Mises Institute. There are not Republicans who are going to join the Mises Caucus. That's just kind of a fact. I'm going to state that as a fact because I think that's reasonable.
Okay. I do want to touch on this because this is the same exact argument people use for, let's say, like Ron Paul. Love Ron Paul. Great guy. Fucking goddamn angel. But people will always say shit like, oh, well, Ron Paul for like utilizing argument for political action. That's totally a logical fallacy because it's the idea of like what if we just rewound time that because you found something through this that there's no other way, or not even that like that you wouldn't have been convinced otherwise. Like something probably would have came along. Just because a political apparatus did it, that doesn't mean the political apparatus is the ideal way to go about it. So, God damn it, Daniel. I know you pay me $20 a month, but there are independents who won't join the GOP though.
Yeah. Okay. How many independents are there by comparison? I mean, there's not a lot of these people, and honestly, most independents don't actually vote. So it's a non-argument, Jacob. Sorry, Daniel. His name's Daniel. I have to remember that.
Oh shit! I just knocked myself. No. I mean, you didn't super chat, but I mean, I don't think there's a.
Is there any?
You don't have to. I mean, I'm not.
Use the system you are forced into to destroy it. I don't think it's not necessary, nor is it a moral compulsion to use the system. I mean, I can make an practical argument for it, but I don't think the way you described it is true.
No, I mean, yeah, because I mean that's kind of the argument with me and you are coming from different angles. You're from the paleo, I'm from the agorist, but I would say it's really just an argument of what works, and I'm of the argument that I think not utilizing the system is the best way to go about it. So
actually, that's why I think I talk to you more as an agorist. Is you are from the argument it's not practical, instead the argument of it's immoral to use political power, which I think it is. But I think I appreciate the fact it's more a practical argument than a principled argument, because the principled arguments get boring.
Most of the country doesn't vote and are independent / not heavily committed. Okay, I don't know what your point is. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, most of them vote, which is a good thing. We should take the people who don't vote and try to encourage them to vote. But they're not going to vote for. If they already don't vote, why would they waste the vote on someone who's not going to win?
Yeah.
That's just Jacob, I love you to death, but come on.
All right. Anyways, the Libertarian Failure. I know you said you'll shut up now, but I think this part might make you read some more. Libertarians were and still are a pluralistic group. Different interpretations of liberty and how to achieve it were cheerfully tolerated for the most part. The appearance of a party line was anathema to the spirit of living variety. The burning issue shifted from which new libertarian theory works and which does not to which libertarian candidate can get elected. Huh? But anyways, see how the things shift when you have certain incentives in place. But to many, libertarianism was a fine theory which had no obvious practice. There are many paths to freedom, true, and each individual should choose the one he or she thought most workable. One that was chosen swallowed up the others. How it did was simple. It tied into the state's grant a monopoly to ideologies that form a centralized political party, and then spokespersons of that ideology are automatically representative servitors or functionaries of that party, even when they vigorously deny any connection by the statist media. And then again, maybe not. Libertarian may have come to mean LP member, but agorists, voluntarists, left libertarians, and such still outnumber the few thousand LP members, and even the never since matched million votes their candidate Edward Clark received in the 1980 U.S. presidential race. I don't really touch on that because I don't really know if we added up all the non-people, if that really. But
I want to point out, I hate the distinction between small L, big L libertarian based on big L means party. I'm a little dyslexic, and when I type, I auto capitalize random letters. I hate when I type out big L libertarian. It was, I saw you joined the party now. It's like, no, of course I didn't fucking join the party. I just spelled libertarian. Shut the fuck up. And I get so frustrated with that big L nonsense.
Yeah. Whether or not libertarianism failed and died, perverted, so near to 1984, Orwell's deadline for tyranny's triumph in the form of an all-powerful party, or was simply a stage in the evolution of agorism, building a theory to explain and morally defend counter-economics is a moot point. Both positions are, in a sense, true. Agorism is here and viable for those who wish to live as freely as possible now and increase their freedom in the future. What now calls itself libertarian, big L, cannot honestly offer that anymore.
Hate that.
Those who understand this will reject the Libertarian Party and other political solutions to the statist problem. Those who accept the LP will waste their time, energy, and wealth in building a new means of keeping people in bondage under the thumb of the state. All right, well, we're in the next section, the Libertarian Insight and Fallacy, unless you have something to add to that.
No, he's right.
Libertarian theory provided the crucial insight as to why counter-economics was morally correct as well as obviously practical and very profitable. The crucial issue was that of the state, its nature, and its evolution. The easiest paradigm, short model for the origin of the state was offered by Franz Oppenheimer, a German sociologist, and adapted into American libertarianism in Albert J. Knox 1935 book, Our Enemy the State. All historical examples fit this simple paradigm. When most of humanity settled into peaceful farming communities with perhaps larger marketplaces, remember the original Agora of Greece, in towns, some people discovered a means of surviving parasitically from the productivity of others. They formed robber bands and attacked towns and settlements, plundering, raping, and murdering. Probably the original barbarian hordes were hunters who took to hunting man when their game died out rather than taking to farming, trading, or productive manufacture. These roving groups were a small minority, or their victims would have died out and they as well, but large as compared to a single town or village. Somewhere along the way, one of them discovered that they could allow the peasants to live with enough to survive on some or on and come back at the next harvest for another raid. This is totally like straight up from Nine State too.
I was about to say.
Yeah. Then these raiders had another idea. They would stay in the same town, steal lightly but regularly, murder enough to keep the peasants and merchants in line, and live well. Other areas, seeing these petty kingdoms arise, decided to submit themselves to their own homegrown warlords that they would not fall prey to foreign warriors. The book of Samuel in the Old Testament describes the anarchist prophet Samuel trying to convince the Israelites that they didn't really want a king, but finally giving in to them.
I was muted, but I was dying of laughter at the anarchist prophet Samuel. I'm not going to get into the biblical arguments about Samuel being anarchist and not based on anarchy, but I think I could go into a lot about that. If anyone wants to talk about it, DM me on Twitter because it's cool stuff to say. But I would say it's cool that he called him that because that's a cool name for him. But
I know Popular Liberty probably get a little chub for that one because I know he likes to talk about how the Old Testament Israelites were a form of anarchy essentially.
Yeah. I would say the covenant community who the monarch was absent was God. That was the monarch, and so they wanted to substitute a new guy to be an arbiter for God, and that was a mistake. But
all right, parasites must remain a minority or kill their hosts. So they discovered religion and later ideology as a means to intimidate peasants and win the all-important sanction of the victim. Go ahead.
Parasites must remain a minority or kill their host. Real quick, people listening, this is why a fetus is not a parasite. Every time I hear parasite, I have to clarify. When I hear definition, it's like, yes, that's something I argue about a lot. Is like fetuses are not parasites, and so I just want to add that after that line.
I'm not going to read it, but you are a paying customer, so I will bring it up. All right. Sanction the victim, an apt phrase of Ayn Rand's. Brutal thugs became kings by divine right, and some very powerful status called emperors, pharaohs, or czars were said to be divine, the unstoppable choice of gods. And so these barbarian raiders institutionalized plunder, taxation, murder, execution and warfare, and even rape. Droit de seigneur, for example, which I believe that was like the right of the kings to like take the woman or whatever. I don't remember. They took control of roads to plunder the caravans, tolls, tariffs. They suppressed all rival criminal gangs with their own police, and all established their own churches, schools, judges, and even philosophers, minstrels, and artists to work in their royal courts.
Two things from there. One, if anybody wants to read about Search's the state finding people to represent their own certs, this is a great book, Politicizing the Bible. It's by Scott Hahn, and he kind of goes through a lot of it. He talks about time the government found a priest or someone who's like, hey, we could buy you up and have you read this way to justify our power against the Pope, who was oftentimes there competing for power. But also, I want to respond real quick to this guy here, The Road to Power, the second one. Real quick, I'm not arguing for conservatism, David. I'm arguing to use a conservative platform for libertarian ends. I'm not arguing for conservatism, so I don't think that's a fair criticism of my position is.
Yeah. No, that's fair. A lot of people do. A lot of the paleo types accuse them of being like, "Oh, you're to take over the Republican Party," and I don't think any of you guys. I don't really feel like I've heard many of you guys advocate for that in any way, shape, or form. It's a matter of, hey, we see somewhere that we might be able to, shift one way or the other, or even maybe on a localism type level, make differences by utilizing the R. But yeah.
Well, it's also the fact that the people who are most affected or affected against their consent, which the lockdowns and all this government tyranny, is libertarians and conservatives. The left wants it. So if we're going to have an ally who's going to be next to us in the boxcar, why don't we work with them now to try to prevent some of that? That's my only argument. It's not always to be conservatives.
Yeah. As people come to understand the situation, and especially important questions of conscience, split religions and ideologies, dissidence grew. The state learned to survive by adapting. It used its courts, thinkers, intellectuals to come up with new ways of mystifying the people.
And the state is great on that point. And elites, intellectual society from Hopper is also great. And I think that's like this is one of my points I've always been making. The state's always going to have intellectual power. And for the longest time, that was the church, which had problems. But now it's universities, and that's much worse. And so I think they understand that it's always going to be intellectuals, and becoming those intellectuals in any way you can is going to be a good thing.
Yep. All right. The kings limited themselves and shared their plunder with aristocrats and certain favored merchants. Thus was born mercantilism, which Adam Smith challenged. Then even peasants and workers were permitted to plunder their fellow merchants, farmers, and workers. This was called democracy. Groups were allowed to organize to fight over who should steal from whom. Though an elite of bureaucrats and very rich businessmen continue, no matter who is elected, and thus reform political parties. I don't know if you want to riff. I know you're a big Hoppe guy. I am as well. He touched on democracy. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what he says is pretty much correct. There will always be, and like, what's the joke? There are three kinds of government. Then there's really only two. It's like there's democracy, oligarchy, and monarchy. And it's like there's really only two. There's a monarchy and oligarchy, and there's really only one oligarchy. It's like everything we have is always an oligarchy that just hides itself in different ways.
Yep.
Yes, Daniel, that is you.
There you go.
Love you, bro.
The libertarian analysis superbly explained the political history of the world and combined with free market economics analyzed depressions, modern warfare, and revolutions, describing their causes and predicting the futility of political solutions. When libertarianism began to organize itself, though, much of the movement was bought off with yet another political party. But to understand the libertarian fallacy, consider its insight in other terms. I guess I do want to touch on that real quick. You said that it describes the causes in predicting the futility of political solutions, but then we're going to use a political solution to get our ends, which I know you would agree with, but especially in a libertarian sense, it's kind of like, okay, like we completely describe the futility of it, but then it's, oh, well, I'm not trying to, it's not a political solution. Like, yeah, but it kind of is.
I see, my thing is, I don't object to the politics can make a change. I think that's kind of one of the ways you can make a change, especially on a local level, because we don't have the oligarchs. So I don't agree with it. It's inherently a mistake. But there are libertarians who do say it's inherently a mistake, and then they go against their own idea when they become Mises Caucus or party types, and so it's
Which, I mean, to be fair, they're like, oh, well, we're going to use it for messaging, and so we're using it for its unintended purpose. It's like, but by that saying it right there, that's kind of the whole point out when I get incentives. You're like, okay, well, this thing has a purpose, and you're going against its purpose. Don't you think it will inevitably return to its purpose?
Yeah.
Like, because that's its incentives.
I have a problem with a lot of Mises Caucus people. They don't like political theory in a sense. They don't like the laws of politics, like the iron law of oligarchy and stuff. And they say things like, well, it's too personal. It's too individualistic to have a set law. You have economic laws that apply on the same basis, but you love Austrian economics for economic laws. These are the same principle. You have laws based on personal action that you can make a set norm about. It's the same principle, except political laws is reality.
Yeah. To understand the libertarian fallacy, consider its insight in other terms. Oppenheimer and Nock pointed out that there were only two ways to acquire wealth: food, shelter, tools, entertainment. One could produce some and trade for others, or one could steal those produced. Those are all the choices there are. They named the productive way, the economic means, and the parasitic way, the political means, which is kind of what he's getting at. But Murray Rothbard, following Ludwig von Mises's human action with his own economic treatise, Man, Economy and State, added that insight into Austrian economics in the final chapters. The demand for elucidation was so great that he wrote in detail an entire book on the subject, Power and Market. It's amazing that for a time, even Dr. Rothbard forgot his own lesson. The choice at power/politics versus market/economics. Using political means to achieve free market ends is self-destructive and self-defeating. All right. The recognition of the libertarian incompatibility of status means to anti-status ends was the first Agorist insight. Following that, the new Agorist, which I do want to say, actually, I want to touch on that real quick. One thing, I don't know if it's in this book or if it's in New Libertarian Manifesto, but he does say something like your means should comport with your ends. I don't remember exactly how he puts it, and that's kind of the point he's getting at. You're basically the idea of utilizing a political party is inherently political party. It kind of is, it's means, but you're trying to achieve a different ends by something that doesn't doesn't comport with the end.
If you want to get like, so maybe some people understand, I'm gonna get a little philosophical. Everything has a teleology that is like geared towards the ending at, like it's the purpose of a table is to be a table. There's a form to fill the table. A political party's goal is to be a political party, and that means there are certain things a political party has to do to be considered that. And if you're trying to use it for outside its means, it's going to be ineffective at that. That's just as simple as it is.
Yeah. The recognition of the libertarian incompatibility of status means to anti-status ends was the first Agorist insight. Following that, the new Agorists looked for the proper means to achieve a free society, or at least a fully libertarian society. They sought market means only. The author of this book and his companions found the counter economy staring them in the face as soon as they thought of looking. All right, the next chapter is agorism. It's quite long. That'll probably almost be its own episode.
Yeah, probably.
So we're not gonna get into that now.
I have a few questions for you about agorism, actually.
Sure.
So does it mean? I know the Meat Institute isn't like a political thing; it's just an economic thing and a serious thing. Is there like an agorist thing, like a site that has agorist resources, or?
I know Agorist Nexus is one. That they do a lot of articles and stuff. I think I want to say Konkin had his own thing. I can't remember what it was. I don't know what its current situation is, but I can't really recommend too many. In the day, though, we're getting to this point though where things are so decentralized. You can just Sal the Agorist is great for this. Obviously, me and him don't 100% agree on everything, but Agorist Nexus is great. Sal the Agorist. I'm trying to think of other like Agorist resources.
I want to point out, if you're a Christian, Techno Agorist on Twitter, he is a Christian pacifist agorist. Good dude. Came on my podcast. Great guy. I met him in person at Tom Wood's event. He doesn't look it, but that dude's like 6'2". He's a tall motherfucker. And I thought he was like, he looked so still because the way the camera was angled. I'm like, oh, it's like 5 something. And I bump into him. I'm like, Jesus Christ, he's just huge.
It is funny when you meet a lot of these people you see on camera and stuff, and you see
Nick Astley. Nick Astley scared. I'm like, there's no fucking way he's that tall. From all his jokes on Twitter, he's tall as shit.
Yep, and I'm short as fuck.
I wasn't expecting that, honestly.
Yeah, you weren't.
I know. I knew you were like tall, but I wasn't expecting the height I saw.
Yeah, I'm 5'5", but I mean, I guess it's not super short, but it's pretty short. But I also think kind of my build makes it even more ridiculous because I'm pretty thick. So,
kind of, yeah, a little bit. Just a little bit.
Yeah, I don't mean thick in like a fat way. I have a buff dad bod.
You are stocky. You are husky, in a good sense.
Yes, I mean, I always keep myself like a month or two out from having like a 6-pack if my wife ever leaves me. But I see no reason to stay ripped now because I'm married. But I keep it close just in case. It's a short insurance policy,
I love that. I love that so much.
Daniel says, I don't see any utility beyond messaging and local nullification. But I do concede you can do that in the GOP.
Yeah, I want to put out messaging. Like one local notification. If you agree that is a go, it's going to be done better in most locations under GOP. And messaging, when you come at someone from an ally perspective, you're coming at the right from the right. You're going to be coming at the right from the right on the right of the party. If you're coming at the right from, you say you're coming at them from the right, but you're coming at them from the position of libertarianism, which is not right to them. And so you may be speaking in their language, but if they see you a libertarian, you're the enemy. And so you have to come at them from the right, on the right, not just speaking it, but actually being on the political party.
Yeah. I mean, and, like I said, like we pointed out in this episode of Kari already, the messaging aspect, like, sure, yeah, you might get some messaging there, just like Ron Paul had messaging as well. But I do, and I've actually addressed the Ron Paul thing. We're not going to go into that at detail. I do think in some ways it's a little bit self-defeating, and that's not to say there aren't benefits. Like I said before, if Dave Smith runs and he actually gets the, say somehow all this shit gets straightened out, all the craziness going on in the LP and stuff, which that I think you do have to take into account all the craziness and bureaucratic nonsense that goes into it and how much energy that takes away. So that really is a cost. So you gotta instead of just looking at the positives and not then you also have to take into account the negatives that go along with it. Like say he has, I'm not at all saying if say he becomes the presidential nominee, I'm sure he would probably affect thousands or tens of thousands of people or hundreds of thousands. Maybe I don't know about millions. That's a bit
think
pushing
he's more
it,
likely to get his plane shot down by Russian agents, like the other guy in the Untitled Society.
I mean, I don't think so, unless he actually became like a legit threat. But I mean, and that's actually another point. Like, if you actually ever had a candidate that was actually any sort of threat, even messaging wise, it would be taken care of.
This is why people who like Donald Trump and like he wasn't a threat because he's still alive.
Yes,
that's really my argument about Donald Trump.
Yeah. Which, I mean, but my point is getting at is it's kind of like there is a cost to this messaging, and the cost is you may not see it in the short run because you'll see like, oh, cool, we got this guy out and he changed all these hearts and minds. But it's like, okay, but how much energy did you use in the process of doing that? How could it have been applied elsewhere? Also, what are the long-term effects of this? Like, I mean, essentially, like one of my main things is that you're going to like if Dave did become the Libertarian Party candidate, he would probably grow the party quite a bit. I think he would actually likely probably get the highest percentage of the vote of any Libertarian candidate probably ever. But at the same time, though, cool. Eventually, that energy is going to die down. It's going to return to the types that got it before. And cool, you just left your enemies with a larger thing to work with. Like.
And I want to point out on this whole point, like the energy being spent. Jason Stapleton has made the point before that I know that you see these people on Twitter. They are doing nothing in their personal life. They're posting memes on Twitter about the Mises Caucus, and then when they succeed, if they succeed, they're going to take credit. And if they fail, they're going to say, "Well, all I did is post memes and actually have made no progress in life because it's a surrogate process, like Ted Kaczynski describes. Yes. Actually, do something for yourself, which is why it's important. Like, I'm learning how to play the piano. I'm doing school. I'm doing this as a hobby. I'm actually doing things in my personal life that is a fulfilling process. That's where my energy is going. Yeah. Don't put your energy into something that is a surrogate process.
Yeah, I like to use the common example of like gambling, and I think that is an apt comparison for what utilizing politics in general is, because what ends up happening, say with a Ron Paul or say Dave Smith does get the candidacy, what will happen is everyone will see, look at all these hearts and minds change and look at all this great movement and all this energy that came to it. But it's like, okay, yeah, you hit the jackpot, but you're someone who's now you've just bought more into this, this gambling thing, and it's like an old lady who played the slots her entire life and wasted tens or hundreds or even millions of dollars of her hard-earned money to play the slots, and in her head she's like, well, fuck, remember that time 5 years ago when I won the jackpot? Like, okay, like, sure, kinda, yeah, like, yeah, that was good that one time.
Yeah, like, it's and like what's that? I love Dave Smith. I think he's like one of the best libertarians. I actually don't know how well he's going to sell to the people, because the libertarians, what they're into is very different than what a boomer or even like a trad con or conservative is into. I think someone running on Legion the Skanks is going to this alien him from actually making any, like, the argument is he's going to get on CNN. Joe Jorgensen never made it on CNN, and he was their kind of person. I don't see Dave actually making it onto the show. It'd be great if he does. I don't see it happening. Just because he's one of our office. He might get on the IDW, Lex Friedman, Ben Shapiro, which would be fun.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Because I actually think you're right, but at the same time, I don't think that's a negative. I actually do think it's a positive, and I do think if he leans into that when they like, oh, look, this time you said the N-word, and he just goes like Chad meme, yes, like it's kind of like, well, okay, like it's kind of the same Trump effect of like we're gonna try to get you for these. Oh, you said grab him by the pussy. And it's like, yeah, I fucking did. What about it?
Everyone's like, you have called women pigs, hoes, fat, only Rosie O'Donnell. That moment is killed it,
Exactly. It's kind of it's so I actually think he would do good in that way. The only reservation I'd have about is how hard would, maybe not necessarily him, but maybe like the LPMC or the LP in general, how hard would they really go on messaging, especially when they've already shown themselves to be amenable to possibly allowing people who aren't on board with this messaging to be possibly in leadership positions or be welcome in the fold. And not in a way of like you can be here, but in like a, oh, your voice is heard kind of way, like, because how hard is he really? I mean, like I've said before when I had Aaron on, or when I was on Aaron's show, kind of like the only way I could really see it working is if you were like, if you had the kind of messaging where you'd be like, yeah, fucking Lindsey Graham's a fucking homo, like that guy, like to where you're shameless, to like hard to the wall type. But like now, if you're to this point where you're like, oh, you're being kowtowed, oh, we can't really hit on the negative of the trans movement or this or that because this might, maybe we should lay back on that a little bit. And not to say they don't hit on it all, but there's something too where you have this influence that pulls you back a little bit. Maybe not entirely, but yeah. Okay, I'll address all yours because you pay. This is what you get for being a paying customer. Australian economics, haha, funny. Yeah, I know. I said Australian instead of Austrian.
I didn't even catch it.
Yeah, I said Australian earlier. Say we can chew bubble gum and walk at the same time, and not everyone needs to or should do the same thing. No, I don't. No, I think I even addressed this last time. Literally, what agorism is in its form pushing for entrepreneurialism, and to say that's the same thing is to not understand entrepreneurialism, because that is a near infinite variety of possibilities. So, all we're saying is there are some things that aren't amenable. Just like this would be like if I said to someone, hey, you shouldn't rape people. That's not a good idea. Like, hey, not everyone needs to or should do the same thing. Like, well, I mean, obviously not the same exact example, but my point being is there are some things that I think don't work well towards your ends. And I think anyone can agree with that. The idea of like, oh, well, we should all do our own thing. Yeah, I agree. I'm just saying maybe some things don't work well, or there are better things that can be done.
I mean, this is the same kind of argument libertarians make when it's like, oh, what's a private company? Well, people can do things, and I can say that's wrong. That's going to be crazy. Also, the biggest point is like you should evangelize things outside of politics. You should, like, if you evangelize things that you think are going to make your life better. Getting involved in politics does not make someone's life better. Solving a problem makes their life better. Second, if you're going to be building things, how about you build something effective, or you build coalitions of people who are going to help you? You're not building anything useful, and you're not evangelizing anything useful. So you're wasting your time with both of those. You're evangelize Christ.
And kind of built into the evangelist thing there is the idea of like, oh, well, we're going to use the LP for messaging. Okay, but that's not an apt thing, because right now, if in this example, I'm an evangelist. Dave Smith was an evangelist before he even had anything to do with the LP. So like it and I get it. Yeah, you get a little bit of a boost, sure, but like at what cost? And that's kind of our whole point. So
real quick, I want to point out these two super stats from David. The biggest platform Zoe got was Ben Shapiro.
You didn't super chat. Don't address him. I'm just kidding. You can if you want.
He's completely right. Ben Shapiro was the biggest show Joe Jorgensen got, and it was cringe.
Joke.
I mean, it was. I watched it. First of all, he didn't even put it on his YouTube channel. He put it on the radio only. So that is just like how cringe it was. So also, I like this one over here. I like Caleb. He makes one of the most compelling cases for GOP strategy. Thank you, David.
I like Caleb, but that just tells me you haven't looked much into it.
I was about to say, it's like I think I do all right, but so Bishop and Democracy from there. I mean, come on, there's a lot better people than me. But thank you.
The political arena is a giant point to fish in. Yeah, sure, because you guys keep fucking doing it.
Have you guys ever actually caught a fish? Maybe exactly. Maybe that's the question. Like, how about you got a guy with a bigger boat who actually catches fish with the right bait? I'm saying.
Oh, he said I said one of. You should have left it at that. Let him feel fucking. Let him feel good. Man.
I was feeling good. I was gonna go to bed all like, yay, I'm all right. Anyway, I gotta plug something real quick if we're gonna wrap it up.
Yeah, we're about to do plugs anyways. Go ahead, drop your plugs.
Okay. I have Aaron from Timeline.
All right, that's it, guys. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
I have Aaron, and I have Nate, the Rogue Contrarian guy on Twitter from Reality Czars. They're coming on the podcast to do White Fragility by Angela D'Angelo. That's just going to be a lot of fun. and I hope Aaron doesn't get my channel taken off. That's about it. Oh,
yeah, I know. That's why why we keep badgering you.
Other one is February 12th. I'm having Thomas De La Windsor on for socialism, and I'm having Gold Guy, Caleb Salmon, Cordoria, Repair 20th Century, and Adam Patrick all on for a symposium on when did things go wrong. And so we're going to try to debate and figure out when did things go wrong. And it's going to be, everyone's going to be drinking, everyone's going to be arguing, and I'm going to have to play moderator. So it's going to be fun.
Yeah, no, but once again, congrats on the Di Lorenzo hit. I know you're a big stand for him.
Yeah.
But on Aaron, I think I'm going on his show Thursday. I don't know when he drops the episode and stuff, so I'll be going on there. This will be my second time going on there. And like I've said before, I want to get him to do the Agorist class theory with me because I think he'd be fun for that one.
He's a fun guy.
Yeah.
I did Nate's podcast, Reality Zone, and I was on as a guest co-host, and my first time ever taking 2 edibles. And I don't remember half of what happened. I remember at one point Nate went, "Caleb, you all right?" I'm like, my eyes were like half like, I was like, "I'm good, man." I don't remember any of it, but it was fun.
All right, with my plugs, I have this is the No Way Jose show. I'm on YouTube. I'm on all the major audio podcatchers, Odyssey as well. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at 2020 No Way Jose. I'm also the same handle on Getter if you want to follow me there. I'll be honest, I don't really pay as much attention to that as I do Twitter, but I don't know, I guess it's good to have the backup. I mean, I don't know, whatever. I'm willing to try new things. If you want to give me money, patreon.com/NoWayJose2020. You can be like Daniel if you pay me $5 or more, and I will keep bringing up your shit, even if it's nonsense. Yeah, like, share, subscribe, comment, all the good stuff. Yeah, definitely go check out Daniel's show. Go check out Caleb's show. With that, we are out. Thank you for coming on, bud. This is fun. I would say we probably have 2 more episodes. There's only 2 more chapters left of this book, but the next chapter is very long. I don't think the last chapter is as long, so it'll probably be a short episode. But I don't see any way we knock out the last 2 chapters in one episode. So I think we have 2 more on this, and but I'm looking forward to it. These have been fun. So with that, we are out.